Hi there, welcome to the Kenny Veach M-Cave mystery. Today we continue on with the discussions and I respond back to recent comments in regards to the unknown human remains found at/near Frenchman Mountains east of Las Vegas. Now, I can provide a bit of a backstory to you as to how one thing applied to the other, so that'll make more sense. And I can also look back at the comments today to answer any questions, check for any resistance, and see if there's any interesting points of views. Now, there are other videos to cover, but I did do a poll recently and the majority wanted to see this video. For others out there, outsiders or lurkers in the background, if you aren't too pleased with this video, well, make sure to participate in the live, polls here and there, which are available and up on my channel page, community tab section. It does help navigate as to what videos and themes to cover next, and when people do vote, it does make it a lot easier and clearer. Okay? So for those that are currently hearing this live premiere, welcome, appreciate that. Feel free to share your opinions, your discussions, thoughts and ideas, and talk about a range of other stuff in between. If you are watching on catch up or whatever, in general, feel free to leave comments down below your discussions and points if you pick up on anything. If you do have anything else to elaborate on, you can list it down below and I can always respond back to it in the future. Down below in the pinned comment section, you'll find one of my comments with some additional links if you want to support the channel in some way or another. And if you just simply want to catch up on the latest videos of mine you may have missed out on, top right corner of the screen, you click on the I symbol and you'll be able to find them, including the Kenny Veach playlist. So, the last video that I actually did was to do with an article, a strange odd one, that will be available up there on the screen to click on. But before that, the more harder hitting one to do with Frenchman Mountains. So before we get into the comment section and begin, I might as well provide a bit of a backstory first of all, so it sets the scene. It wasn't that long ago, maybe just about a week ago or so, when it was reported that Frenchman Mountains near to or so east of Las Vegas, not far from Nellis Air Force Base, Frenchman Mountains is, that a hiker who supposedly does a regular routine of going out there in the open nature ended up stumbling across some human remains, a skull and some bones. Now, it wasn't a full body, and as for the autopsy, the report, investigation there, that's still pending. There have been no updates since. It's a bit of a void, it's a bit blank. Will we ever get an answer? Maybe, maybe not. Depends how popular it is, right? A few different news articles, news stations covered it at first, but I don't know if they will update it. If there is anything in the future, then I'll cover a video. If any of you hear about updates, it'll be appreciated if you leave a comment somewhere. Take in mind, with being in a different country, I guess the Google search terms may not show up quite the same, right, as if you were in the US. And there are times where there are some articles I can't access because it says you're in a different country, you can't view it. When it's come to some court documents and things like that in the past, also with Dylan Rounds, some stuff said you couldn't access it because of legal reasons out of the country. It's kind of weird, right? I mean, it's public stuff, public information, but if you're from a different country, you can't always get a hold of it. So it can be a bit problematic at times, but it's not stopped us from doing the coverage and finding another way around it. There tends to be another way around it, so that's all good there. But the reason why I applied this recent breaking news or so with Kenny Veach is mainly down to Kenny Veach's original comment on YouTube when his comment was up public before it was deleted at a later point, okay, on son of an Area 51 technician. And we have gone over those comments over and over again with time, and when looking at the description of it, Kenny Veach said, I found a M-shaped cave, the M cave, not far from Nellis Air Force Base. And all I simply did was go on Google Earth and type in Nellis Air Force Base. It was east of Las Vegas. Where Kenny Veach was hiking in his video looking for the cave, that was north. That was Sheep Range, Jermay Canyon. Now, roughly a 30-mile or something distance between the area Kenny hiked in his video and the area he could have hiked in with his first encounter with the M cave. How can you go from one extreme to another in different directions, right? But considering the way this case has gone, the twists and turns and mistakes made by Kenny and possible misdirection, anything is possible. Yes, you can use common sense and you can say, well, Kenny was outright in Jermay Canyon. That's where he was looking for the cave, so that's where it must be. Okay, but it doesn't correlate to his initial description of his very first encounter with the cave. Because Nellis Air Force Base, a base near to Frenchman Mountains, nowhere near Sheep Range, Sheep Peak, two completely different areas. Of course, Nellis test range, the test sites over that way, north, where it's controlled by military, the land restricted. Yeah, maybe that's what Kenny was referring to. He might have made a mistake when, describing it in his comment. Simple mistake, like many others. Becomes a bit of a running theme, doesn't it? With the contradictions and lies. When Kenny said you can go exploring into caves within the area of Jermay Canyon, you can't. Not a single hiker that's gone out there has been able to find one that could be explored. So Kenny must be lying. With Kenny saying that the cave is in that area, well, no other hiker has come across a true M cave which you can go into. There's still that small possibility that it could have been covered, filled in. Okay, let's not rule that out. But, hikers have come to that conclusion that there's just no true M cave out in that area. You start adding it all up together, what is there actually out there related to Kenny Veach's supposed findings? What would happen if a person was to go hiking around Frenchman Mountains on both sides and even Sunshine Mountain? What could be found there? Maybe that's the next question, the next map analysis, right? If Kenny Veach is all about misdirection or somehow messing up and making a big mistake in two different locations, one north, one east, what would happen if you went east of Las Vegas and hiked in the mountains there? See, this is what the reality is. Even besides the human remains, which is obviously breaking news, going against the original narrative that might not even be 100% true, but going against it, going against a routine doesn't feel right. So I can understand Jeff Clark and some others, people that have actually hiked in the area where Kenny Veach recorded himself. By going east, it seems like you're just walking away from the case, that it's going to be a complete failure, right? It doesn't seem right going in a completely different direction. Is it? Is it though? Is it at times you got to break the cycle or think outside of the box, change it up a little bit? I wonder. Now, my points, my ideas may not be strong enough at this moment in time to convince people, or not so much convince, but just to highlight and suggest. Still a rough possibility. It might need more evidence with time. I mean, linking on with those human remains, if those human remains turned out to be Kenny Veach by some miracle, even though some people don't want it to be true and others don't because they want and hope that he's alive, but either way, if it turned out to be Kenny at Frenchman Mountains, wouldn't that turn the case upside down? Wouldn't it? My question, at least, and I don't know if I'll do it in the community tab section, I might even do it there, or just here, or both. We'll see how it goes, and We'll see how many people are watching. If, on the condition Kenny Veach was found at Frenchman Mountains, his remains, what would hikers do about that? Would they continue looking for the M cave or not? And if they were to continue looking for the M cave that Kenny talked about, would they relocate to Frenchman Mountains if that's where his body was at? Right? Just a suggestion, okay? I mean, you look at you call it rock geology, the rock structure, the mountain structure, how it goes up and down, wavy. It's like multiple M's. Not directly M caves, but M-shaped sloped mountains, let's call it that. Does it give the illusion of possible M caves? Maybe. Now, one individual, I think he's called Harry, did like a map, a project on Google Earth, which was good, interesting. I can take a look at that at some point. If I understand it, great. If I don't quite understand it, I will create a similar project, but from my point of view. Just depends, right? Just to point out possible spots. I did briefly hover around the area saying, if you see anything, let me know. Maybe that's what's happened. I didn't see anything directly at the time, but I was talking in general about other themes and topics, which were arguably more important. So if I do a dedicated video of the area, Frenchman Mountains, and just around the area, general, it could be of use. That can come with time though, because this video right now was requested by viewers, which is good to see. So the general backstory is, remains found recent time, Frenchman Mountains. Due to the description Kenny Veach gave in his first comment about his first encounter with the M cave, matches Frenchman Mountains, east, near to Nellis Air Force Base, as he described in his comment. Could be a mistake, might not be. Could be misdirection, it could be multiple lies which stem from something else or much more. You never know. It's always worth considering. So that being said and done, let's see what, viewers, the audience thought about that video, the findings and the possible links. We'll look at the comments right now. So I will just adjust it to the latest. As I said, there was about 100 comments to get through. So that's why I thought a standalone video would probably fit better, because it would, get a bit overwhelming if it was done in the last one, right? A bit too heavy with all the text. Take in mind as a heads up, if for whatever reason your comment doesn't show up in this video, it's most likely because I recorded it before you posted your comment, okay? So, first response here by Atari, 6 days ago. Referring to the area as a sketchy side of the town, so east of Las Vegas towards the outer skirts, Atari says it's a sketchy area, which is interesting to hear. See what some of the responses are. Eric, some person called Eric, can you elaborate? Atari says, aloha. I actually did elaborate on this, but it seems my comment was deleted. I really hate it when that happens. I said that's because of YouTube. Atari has experienced it in the past. Jeff Claw's experienced it as well. Not just on my channel, but on Jay Chuck's. It's kind of random. Anyway, Atari says east side of town of Las Vegas is a rough area. So dangerous, and many murders and crime are ever present. I lived in Las Vegas. I'd feel very uncomfortable being on that side when we would have to visit extended family. Nam-Uz also had found remains in those area at the beginning of 2015. Whether it be Kenny or not, his family should give their DNA to see if it matches or give dental records. Also, Kenny lived in northern Vegas. North, east is Nellis, right? Hope that is elaborated enough. Yeah. So it's good of Atari to share her experience because she has been within the area. She's lived there in the past. So she would have seen stuff, felt things, the atmosphere in general. So you can take this on board. If there's anybody else watching, whether it be you live in the area of Las Vegas or you've visited the place in the past, let me know your thoughts. Is the east side a bit rough, bit dodgy? Have you seen or heard anything, right? Now, are we saying that if Kenny Veach was over in that direction east, could he have got caught up in something? Trouble. Seen something he wasn't supposed to. Wrong place, wrong time. And it led to his life being cut short, possibly. Well, this comment by Atari, she's referring to the town, referring to Las Vegas, east side of the place. In terms of the remains that were found, they were near to Frenchman Mountains, further away, okay? Further away from the town, further away from Las Vegas. But still, when you get to the outer skirt area, where it's a bit quieter, you could get some criminal activity still going on because if it's less monitored, a little bit less surveillance, a bit more remote, you can get away with more things, right? So if Kenny, for some reason, was over in that direction, he could have still got caught up in a messy, tricky situation to get out of, okay? Anything else? So Atari says, I don't think it is Kenny, in response to the remains. Atari says, it seems like you're getting a lot of heat for this video. I know you do not live here in this country, but at least you're covering it and looking to document all possibilities. It's good you did, Sam. So I appreciate that. And I guess I have been attacked, Atari, in minuscule ways, but nevertheless it still happened. But it's not exactly concentrated on Kenny Veach. When I was covering the Dylan Rounds case, I was attacked by a lot of cancer out there, degenerates, right? To be honest, you could argue and say that warlike wrath when entering the Dylan Rounds community, not the case is important, but the community by itself, when warlike wrath entered it, it was like I was downgraded to a OnlyFans prostitute in a way. Did I lower myself? Did I lower my standards? Did I interact too much with rats and disease-ridden humans? I don't know, okay? But I'm sure people watching, audience members, could come to a conclusion themselves. But, since moving away, okay, I've not been attacked as much because I've just not been covering it. Whilst I've moved on to Idaho 4 or Kenny Veach once again, there are people popping up, as you would expect. Maybe the odd ones following from the Dylan Rounds community if they have a gay obsession with me, which is unfortunate. It happens. But this is what happens when you're consistent. The more consistent you are, the more of a target you become. It is what it is. I mean, look at the Dylan Rounds case. The official Dylan Round... Actually, I don't know if you know Atari, if you are here watching, but I'll just summarise it. So, Atari, like with Kenny Veach, where HLN did that documentary of Kenny, whether it be for the right or wrong reasons, whether it was accurate or piss poor. Well, with the Dylan Rounds case, missing person, true crime case, different to Kenny, but still a mystery. It was Paramount Plus did a documentary of Dylan Rounds, included the family, the interviews and stuff, and even used some footage online. The official documentary used footage of some of my video, randomly, without my consent. I did not consent to it. And they didn't even ask me either. So that's a bit typical there. And they also cut and changed the wording to make it sound like I was saying something when I wasn't. What I actually was saying was referring to a silly theory, an idea, which was worded almost as a fact by the likes of the Shack Lady and Bob Farrell in the past. So it was unfortunate that happened, but it did. Did it cause really any long-term damage? No, I just had to try and clear it up as soon as possible. And most people realised it was a bit of a joke. And the rats in the background and the dodgy dark sides, dark force out there that found it hilarious. I think the biggest joke is on them, the biggest idiots around, considering They're the biggest talkers, with the whiniest voices, claiming to be the winner, claiming to be number one, claiming to hold all the information, and yet they couldn't even make it into the documentary. Aw, what a stupid twat. Anyway, I made it in, whether I like it or not. It is what it is. But never mind, moving on. It was good for Atari here to give an idea, an explanation of Las Vegas. I believe it was Jay Chuck was hovering about the area in some of his videos in the past. Scott Natal did the same thing, specifically looking for Kenny when looking around the homeless community, asking about. Was unsuccessful, but it was outside of the box, and that can be useful at times. We got Cleo here, oh my god. We got Johnny Catbird with a cat emoji. Another cat comes into the chat. There we go. I believe it was Catbird that made the reference in the first place about the remains found. So shout out to Johnny. Yeah, awareness, etc. June says, coroner said they're human bones, but they're not calling it suspicious death yet. Guess unless they find evidence of trauma, what can they say? Yeah. I mean, like, well, I guess the only other comparison you could mention at this moment in time would be Christine Passe Parker. Human skeletal remains found in the Nevada desert, 12 miles south of Eugene Mountains, close to Mill City. So it would have been more southeast or so, slightly. Yeah, the confirmed fate was her through dental records and x-rays, but as for coming to a conclusion of how she died, cause of death, that remains unknown at this moment in time, similar to what we see here, which has, I guess, happened beforehand and still remains unknown. But the case here with this unknown one in Frenchman Mountains, there was less bones, making it harder and takes a bit longer to process and come to a definitive conclusion. I mean, it was like a bullet hole. You could say foul play, right? But then again, you could say it was suicide. So I don't know how they'll be able to determine what's what. If it looks like a cracked skull, it could be someone was knocked out cold with a melee weapon, or they just simply tripped, fell, and smacked their head on a rock. With limited bones and stuff, you can't really set up like a crime scene and map out exactly how things followed and what happened next. If the bones are spread all over the place due to the wildlife, yeah, I guess it could be a bit of a tricky situation, but I'm sure they'll get to the bottom of it eventually. It's a waiting game. This person says, okay. This person says, let's hope it's him, with a sad face. Jackson says, Indiana Jones profile picture. Says, why would we want it to be him? It's human remains and he's probably dead. Dan says, because if he has been dead this whole time, it finally gives the family closure. But you know what? As I was saying, if it's confirmed to be Kenny Veach, based off that direction and his original description, could the M cave be in that area? Would it be a change of direction for hikers to go over that way to check? I wonder. But Jackson's comment, why would we want it to be him? It's human remains and he's probably dead. Right, so that doesn't make sense. You're saying that we don't want it to be him. Why? Because you want the mystery to continue? Or you don't want it to be him because that sounds like heartbreaking news to find out that he's dead. But anyway, in your comment, you eventually say, well, he's probably dead anyway. So if he's dead anyway and you find him, then why would you not want that to be the outcome for the closure? It's a bit of a contradictory comment, that. Anyway, David Wilson says, in a respectful way, I hope this is Kenny. I have followed the story for a long time. I did speak with Sharon once before, also Kenny's child, Vicky Veach. So I don't know who David Wilson is. Anybody in the chat, have you seen this person before? Heard of him? Can anyone confirm that David reached out to Sharon, also known as Sharon Pilgrim, the ex-girlfriend of Kenny Veach? And this person says they spoke with Sharon. David, do you mean over the phone? Do you mean email or conversation on YouTube through comments. You can elaborate, feel free to do so. And you said you reached out to Kenny's child, what, Kenny Veach? What was that all about? Did you get any answers? Any strange behaviour? What's this one? Kevin says, being as that you aren't from America, something you aren't getting is that Nellis Air Force Base is a known base. Plenty of people nationwide would know Nellis Air Force Base is near to Area 51. Many people consider them interchangeable or even to be the same place. Because we have dug way deeper into the region, we know that he was recording closer to Nellis bombing range and stuff, but more than likely Kenny just mentioned a known name to describe the area. Rough. Right. There's a high chance he would have said Frenchman, Sheep Range and Mount Charleston are all near Nellis Air Force Base. Plenty of areas are like this in the United States. I'm Washington State. There is Fort Lewis, an army base, but right up the highway is McChord Air Force Base, and there's also Bangor Naval Base nearby, but no one ever said the words Bangor or McChord. The entire area would have been referred to as being nearby to Fort Lewis. Now it's JBLM, Joint Base Lewis McChord, but still more commonly called Fort Lewis. Such a vast country, I'm sure we have a different way of describing location versus smaller countries like in Europe. Plenty of Area 51 channels on YouTube commonly call it Nellis Air Force Base. Right. Well, simply to refer back to once again, yes, in Kenny's second hike out there, his actual recorded one, it's obvious as to where he really is. Nowhere near the Nellis Air Force Base, but closer to the bombing range north. Yes, we can confirm that. But we don't have any proof, we don't have any footage of his first hike, his first encounter with the cave. So it could be anywhere. It really could be anywhere, right? He tells the story wrong, Kenny. He could change it. He could alter it. You never know. If Kenny had original footage, if he actually had a camera with him when he accidentally came across the cave, then we could compare and contrast the footage, couldn't we? To see if it's in the same place or not, but we don't have that. So it's a bit of a guessing game. Just because we saw where he hiked his second time out there doesn't mean to say that's the same area as the first hike he went out there unrecorded, right? And take in mind, Kevin, when it comes to Kenny Veach in the area of Sheep Range, he doesn't do a good job labelling the locations. Even if the Americans have got a clear or a specific way of labelling places without labelling some of the lesser known ones. Mention the most popular, the more well-known locations roughly as a whole in the area. Just remember, Kevin, when Kenny Veach was on his hike in his video, he failed to make references to Pitcher Canyon. Didn't really call it Jermay Canyon. Never referred to Wild Horse Pass. Never mentioned Sheep Peak, more so pointing in the direction of Sheep Peak and calling it Gas Peak. Gas Peak is nowhere near. He was pointing to the wrong thing. He made mistakes in his video. He couldn't recall the names of key locations within the hike area. Yeah, you can point to Mount Charleston in the distance, congratulations. But what about the actual hike you're doing? Kenny failed to mention key named places on that hike route. From an experienced hiker, it doesn't quite make sense. He looks amateur. He looks inexperienced, right? So, with that recklessness, both in lack of equipment, limited resources, and also possibly limited knowledge of the area by not naming the locations, key points of views, and even falsely naming wrong locations, naming Sheep Peak as Gas Peak. That's wrong. Two different areas. If they're in two completely different areas, then when Kenny refers to Nellis Air Force Base, literally, and then Nellis Test Range, two different things. That's what I'm getting across. There's a pattern of mistakes, a pattern of contradictions, a pattern of lies with Kenny Veach. What are you supposed to believe? That's why you need to think outside the box, outside of the matrix. Moving on. We've got Rumpel, shout out to Rumpel, saying, what a chilling premiere, I'm excited to see the outcome. So I'm glad you liked the video. Etta, it used to be called Sunrise Mountain. Well, it still is, but that's next to Frenchman Mountains. I double checked on Google Earth earlier to confirm that. Okay. We've got Wes, interesting, hopefully someone can get closure. There we go. Glenn. Eric again saying, suppose Kenny ran into some bad company. You never know. This guy says the bad company was Kenny's own mind. He left us on his own, and there's a chance he hitchhiked far away to get even more desolate. I do think he's in a cave somewhere, whether it was the fabricated M cave or another one. Right, seems a bit random. So, you're saying that he hitchhiked. Are you referring back to my original theory that he staged his disappearance out at Jomay Canyon, leaving his car, his phone, his keys behind in the area, roughly, and then walked down to the highway to get picked up and then go elsewhere? Are you referring to my original theory or not? Feel free to elaborate to make it clearer. David Bell, I'm sure I've seen this person before. Serious doubts of that being Mr. Veach. This person, it's not. These people from GLP. We got a link there, which is something to do with mountains and a giant coming out of a hole. I guess the interesting thing is, and it's kind of ironic, that whenever it comes to findings, whether it be a Bigfoot, a Sasquatch, it always tends to be pixelated, right? Looks like it's been recorded on a Nokia device. Even to this day, with all the technology, with all the smartphones, when there's a UFO, it's blurry, it's fuzzy, people can't stabilize the camera, it's going all over the place. And the same with Bigfoot going through the forest. How are you supposed to see it clearly? Why not just use a clear phone? Or maybe the excuse is, if they did, then it would be debunked instantly. Who knows? But when it comes to a certain Sasquatch, present, lurking through the thick woods, the thick wood and the bushes, the trees. Sasquatch in the chat right now. She doesn't have a Nokia. She doesn't have a pixelated device. She has a HD 4K 60 frames per second. Oh my God, Sasquatch, you go girl. Anyway, we got Brian here saying, you'd be surprised as to how fast nature processes a carcass. I saw a bear carcass disappear completely in a couple of weeks. No trace bones scattered. Thanks for sharing. So yeah, that's what the important thing is with this autopsy, this analysis pending to try and date back as for how old the bones are. Even if it's just one bone, if you can date it back, maybe a couple of weeks, months, years, that will help. If it does date back to 2014, there's every chance it reinforces it could be Kenny. We got a person called Erin Gemini, interesting name, saying, as many know, Kenny Veach's girlfriend had posted on social media that Kenny was suffering from depression at the time of his disappearance. One searcher in the Kenny Veach case, Outdoorsman YouTube channel, Aquachiga, put himself into the mind of a depressed person while searching for Kenny. The chick said that more than likely Kenny would find an out-of-the-way hidey hole, a mine or a cave to end his life in. As Kenny may not have wanted to be found, Kenny knew the area very well, probably better than most. Having said that, these remains, hopefully, are likely are Kenny's. Well, in fairness, Aaron, if you're saying there's a form of hope that the remains found at Frenchman Mountain are Kenny's, that kind of undoes everything you said up above in your comment. Not as a criticism, but as an observation. Because, like how you said, if Kenny Veach truly knew the area very well, such as the area he was hiking in on his video, Jomay Canyon, north of Las Vegas. If Kenny really knew the area so well, then he wouldn't have made mistakes when naming key locations like Sheep Peak, accidentally calling it, or purposely calling it, Gas Peak. Not naming Wild Horse Pass or Picture Canyon, Jomay Road. Key things like that Kenny didn't mention. Did he know the names? Or was he confused? And if Kenny Veach truly knew the location and was an expert, then he would have been able to relocate the M Cave easily. And yet he didn't. So maybe he's not as good as people make him out to be, let's say. And as for the whole depression thing, if Aquachigger put himself in the mind of Kenny Veach, well, I guess Aquachigger did a good job, because Aquachigger bloody hell walked past the covered up M Cave, right? Are we saying the M Cave? No, but an M-shaped cave that was covered up, which Kenny Veach walked past in his hike video and said, oh yeah, and a place, an M cave, a place, just like here, which looked like a covered up cave. Sean Horlecker investigated it in 2019. Aquachigger in 2021 or 2022 went past that area and completely blanked it. I know, not exactly good, is it? But these are just observations, valid ones. And the whole point about the girlfriend posting online that Kenny was suffering from depression and possible suicide. Okay. That's coming from the girlfriend. The girlfriend who's within the mental health field profession. The girlfriend that has businesses from the past that were closed down due to shady reasons. The girlfriend that, supposed to be compassionate, ended up saying to Kenny, don't pull a Robin Williams on me. The girlfriend that said in 2021 onwards 22 in a comment to a fellow investigator on YouTube saying, I'll let you know if you get close to the truth in solving this case. Oh, this is so exciting. Who in their right mind would act like that? The girlfriend. The same person that mentions about suicide and mental health in the first place. Yeah, dodgy. What else do we have here? Yeah. And in addition, the girlfriend also said she reported Kenny missing after a couple of days. Turned out she lied. It was about 7 to 8 days. There we go. As for the mental health card, there's no evidence to suggest he committed suicide at this moment. No gun, bullet casings, or bone or blood has been found. So, just an idea. This person that looks like a default profile joined 7 months ago. What else have they said? You completely failed to comprehend that comment. It's Your viewpoint is boring. You're boring. You're a turd. Right. So this person could be from the Dylan Rounds community. This could be a person that has a gay obsession with me. But here they say in capital letters, the guy went out into the desert with a pistol and mental illness. You do the math. Also, you do the math. I think what you need to do, default profile, is scoot off from my channel instead of being very obsessed, right, and consistent. You keep coming on back, your hands and knees, whinging and whining, not getting anywhere. You provided 0 contribution to the case and 0 contribution to the channel. You're a pathetic freeloader and a statistic to this channel. So either you continue whining and adding to the statistics on this channel, or you get a grip, okay? You rethink, you revise, and you take a different form of action, okay? You're going to be on good behaviour or not. So it tells me you're going to disappoint me over and over again. Pathetic. And once again, whilst Kenny took the pistol with him into the desert, that's exactly what he did on his second hike for protection, right? So you can interpret it as Kenny went out into the desert with the firearm, because he's suicidal. Well, how about this? If Kenny was suicidal and had issues, was he suicidal before his second hike out there, right? Because if Kenny just so happened to have gone missing on his second recorded hike, and let's say that recorded hike was never uploaded onto his channel, and that was his final hike, well, that would have been assumed that he committed suicide on that hike before his third hike, just because he took a firearm with him then. But when we look back right now, because we knew he returned back safely on his second hike whilst having a firearm, we're not saying anything about suicide there, but people are saying it about his third one. So it seems to be a bit picking and choosing, right? It's a bit pathetic. Not enough substance. Anyway, what does this person say? DTA, not a facade, a facade. Good for you. Now, have you spent as much time on punctuation and corrections, would you be able to understand what the actual point of the video was in the theme and pattern? Or do you spend more time on less important things? I wonder. Smooth fishing. Could be Eric the hiker, which Sharon knew both hikers if Eric was a real person. Yeah. So Eric the hiker, a random individual to have reached out to Sharon Pilgrim, the girlfriend of Kenny Veach, the ex-girlfriend, on Twitter. And there were some tweets from Sharon's old Twitter account responding back to Eric the hiker saying, "Where are you? We've not heard back from you. Have you gone missing? Are you okay?" Never really got anywhere from that point, but originally beforehand, Eric was saying how, yeah, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to look. Did anything happen? Don't know. It's a mystery. And that was back in 2016, right? This is the thing. You can say there's trolls, there's fake people, but in 2016, was the Kenny Veach case as popular as it is nowadays? No, it wasn't. Just like how there wasn't really any hikers back then. 2015 to 2020? Yeah, 2015 to 2020, it was only Jeff Clark and Sean Horlacher. So you can tell the area itself wasn't that popular. The case itself wasn't that popular. So the likelihood of trolls and people messing about were lower in numbers compared to how they are nowadays. So Eric could have been real. You never know. What's this one? Misty Gutierrez saying, not everyone takes the path most travelled. Some hikers like to explore off-path and may come across new discoveries. They've never seen any of the previous hikes in the same area. In the nicest way possible, I think you really need to move on to something else. You're wasting your life, Warlight Ref, for something that has no happy ending no matter how it pans out. There isn't enough information about where the bones were found to determine anything, and Kenny Veach is one person who went missing years ago. How many more people have gone missing since then? It could be anyone. I know that it can be hard to accept that some things you may never know the answers to, but at some point you gotta live for yourself and forget, because you're seeing Kenny Veach in everything, and it's starting to come off as a little psychotic, with a clown emoji. No offence intended, and that is not meant as an attack on you in any way, but it's the truth. Right. First of all, Misty Gutierrez, which is an unfortunate name because there is another person called Misty, but I think this must be a completely different person, joined 3 years ago, so likely not an impersonation account. But what I will say is, if you are listening right now, Misty Gutierrez, have you contributed to this case? From the looks of it, you've done F all. But for you to come to the conclusion that I'm so stuck on this case and supposedly obsessed with it, well then clearly, Misty, you've been around maybe long enough. Maybe you have seen a range of my videos to come to that conclusion. If not, well, I'd say it was a bit reckless to, speak before thinking. Okay? But if it's the initial point you're making out, what I would interpret this as, you're telling me to move on? Why? What, move on to a different case or move away from YouTube as a whole? My question to you, Misty, why should I even listen to you? A default channel with zero contribution to the case, zero contribution to this channel, and zero content on your own channel. You're a default profile. There's not much to go off from that. For you, as a random individual, to tell a established YouTube channel what to do and what not to do is a bit ridiculous. So I think you need to rethink, okay? And as for covering the Kenny Veach case, there has been success, there have been things cleared up, and there have been good people that have come across along the way in different ways possible. There have been positives from covering the Kenny Veach case. Regardless of the true outcome of Kenny Veach, good things have happened along the way, directly or indirectly. The community or other stuff miscellaneous. So it's all under control, Misty. I'll do what I do and what I think works. You can continue to watch. If you want to complain, be another statistic. If you don't want to complain, maybe look back at some of my videos and understand the language that I use. Okay? So, there's not really much more to say. Moving on. We got Quantum saying, bro, Frenchman Mountains is literally in Las Vegas. It starts at the end of Lake Mead Boulevard, just past Hollywood Boulevard. Couldn't be Kenny. And it's Nevada, not Nevada. Nevada, fucking hell, mate. Quantum Stella. You get a fucking Foster's Rattler, mate. You want a fucking Australian accent? Crikey. We'll get Andrew Culver in. Not even fucking Australian. God damn it, mate. Where's Lincoln Kane at? I don't know, probably stroking the turkey or the cockerel in the background. Can't control himself. He's got a mind of his own. Crikey, mate. You see what happens? What the hell's going on here? I mean, it's calm down. Calm the fuck down, big boy. Shut up. Anyway. Right, so you say Frenchman Mountains is literally in Las Vegas. Well, great. Did you watch the video? Did you even read the title? Kenny was near Area 51, not the city where Frenchman Mountains is. Kenny's original comment, Quantum, hinted that he was at Frenchman Mountains because where he said he originally hiked was near Nellis Air Force Base. Nellis Air Force Base is east of Las Vegas. Nellis Air Force Base is near to mountains where people can hike publicly. And one of those mountains is Frenchman Mountains. And it just so happens in recent time, remains were found at Frenchman Mountains. So, clearly you should be able to understand how one thing could link to the other. Area 51 is many miles away. You say Area 51 is 85 miles from Frenchman Mountains, nowhere near where Kenny was. The interesting thing is, with this idiot on screen, it's not even loading up. How interesting. How interesting that their profile doesn't load up. What a dodgy account indeed. Well, we can't seem to look back at this moment. But I think you're truly misunderstanding the point. So we've got this guy again, this obsessed individual, basically calling Warlike Wrath that. Sounds something similar what Ty Corbin would say, a very childish individual, a man-child stuck in an adult's body or something with a mentality of a crayon. Yeah, interesting. So there might be some resistance along the way. These default profiles could be tied to Kenny Veach or the family of Kenny Veach, or it could be others that are involved in the case or involved in Kenny's disappearance. These could be the type of people on a lesser severity of those that have attacked other investigators out there on this case. All I can say is, oh well, I've still got videos to cover, and I will cover them. Complain or not. Whatever. But is there anything else to highlight here? I'm just interested as to why that doesn't want to load. There we go. So this person called Quantum Stella joined 14 years ago. Over 1,000 subscribers. How interesting. What does their channel consist of? Freedom. Scotland. Alex Jones. So, not exactly original. Shorts, Joe Biden. It seems kind of degenerative. Live. Battlefield 5. Battlefield 2042. So we've got a degenerative gamer here. So that says a lot. Because the individual left a comment saying bro, that would make me think this is a younger individual. And if they are a younger individual, well, they're going to be lacking in knowledge and understanding. They're going to be an impetuous individual from the looks of it. Yeah. Playlist. Mormons. Uh-oh. Cult. Bible. Uh-oh. Right. I mean, you could come to the conclusion it's of a younger age, but then again, some of the content more politically driven could be of an older individual. A bit of an idiosyncratic individual. But yeah, this person called Quantum and Faking are complete prats, okay, with a low IQ just based on the fact that they can't understand or comprehend the language that I used in my video. As I clearly said, Area 51, the base, is nowhere near the hiking spot where Kenny Veach went out on his second hike, his recorded one. So that's an idiot comment there. And as for the difference between Area 51 and Frenchman Mountains, that's not even in comparison. We never even made that comparison in the last video that was made. So once again, you're just making a prat of yourself. Feel free to come back and make another prat of yourself, because I sense that's going to be a pattern with you. Seems to be a bit of an argumentative individual that can't understand the warlike wrath terminology or English language. It's a bit pathetic, okay? So once again, I'm disappointed in you, okay? Moving on. We got this person, and this is breaking news. You'll find out shortly. So, they say, let me tell, this being just 2 hours from my house, that particular section outside of Vegas is so littered with remains. Chances that it's Kenny, I'd say, are less likely than inherent. Dumped remains of homeless hunters, remains of foreigners lost and injured. You have no idea how common this is, but rare to be publicised. Kenny would be far from common hiker. This person shows up again. Right? I'm a Mojave Desert native. This is 100% not him. The area from Frenchman to Lake Mead and Boulder is riddled with bodies. Some accidents, some not. Kenny's body is up where he disappeared, where his car was left, where his phone was left. Why did you spell phone incorrectly? This person says, I think Kenny went out that day with a mission, dropped his phone off at the mine because he knew that's where people would go. Fair point. I believe in one of his many hikes, he found a perfect spot for his exit. I think it's days away from that mine. There was no M cave. His M cave was his final exit spot. That's where he chose to leave us. Interesting. Right, so these two individuals popping up again. Now, you know why this is very interesting? 6 days ago, this comment was posted. We look at the name, doesn't quite ring a bell, but let me tell you something. The buzzers are pinging away right now. This comment itself isn't really negative, but the individual behind this account is negative all the other times. So have they seen the light? I'm not quite sure. But one thing that's never changed is their username, known as We the People! We the People! We the complainers! We the whingers and whiners! We the self-obsessed individuals with warlike wrath! We keep on coming back and complaining and discrediting all his research that he does! We the people of the US, which are all about pronunciation. If you get it wrong, you're gonna get ass beat. You're gonna turn up to the paramedics, gonna turn up to the elevators, gonna go to the mall, get some groceries in, get our tomatoes, potatoes, get my coffee. Yeah! Oh, here we go again. Yeah? Are the Americans standing up right now with their flags, raising their hands, grasping their chest, saying, we the people approve of you now. We the people have seen the light. We the people have read the dictionary. We the people bow down to warlike wrath in the name of Jesus. What the hell is going on? God damn it. Okay, this is not the Dylan Rounds case. And yet the madness, the circus continues. And so does the stamina. I never lost it. Okay. So moving on. Once again, Frenchman. Not the region of Kenny Veach was. Need to re-watch. Viewpoint is boring. Your default profile is boring. We got Nancy. Your comments help the content provider. That's why we're here right now. But Nancy is a good individual. And we've got some more pronunciation. Oh, goodness. Facade. There we go. We got a nice... What do we have here? Oh, we got an encyclopedia. Brilliant. Well, the way this has been typed up looks a bit dodgy. Yeah. This person says, seek help. Response. Why is that? Or are you just an insulting jerk? Christy. You probably copy-pasted more than you wanted. Yeah, so we got some strange individuals showing up, mainly males. See, roughly, statistically speaking, from the Dylan Rounds case and community to the Kenny Veach case community. In each one, there are some wild people, there are some weird characters, there's weird shit going on. But there was more female activity in the Dylan Rounds case than there was in the Kenny Veach case. The Kenny Veach case is more driven by males who are acting a bit idiosyncratic, okay? Observations, experience, okay? That's what it's based on. Moving on. King of Kings. Why would he go alone if it was the most strangest and scariest place he's ever been? That's what comes across as so irrational and strange about it for anyone to do. No? Fair point what you mentioned. We can clear that up in a second. I'm not informed about this disappearance much, so anyone who has time to answer my question above would be appreciated. Right. So, comment here by me, I might as well read it. Kenny was known to go on most hikes by himself, specifically the dangerous ones. Sometimes he hiked with his girlfriend, ex, even though the girlfriend claims to have been on many, if not all. That's a lie, an exaggeration. And some other times, Kenny did go with his nephew, Hunter Veach, and we saw on his Facebook profile a photo of that, an example in some woods. In the past, when Kenny hiked, location not given, 20 miles up to a mountain, he injured his left leg, needed airlifting out of there. And on another occasion, he got bit by a snake. So kind of reckless, right? And at times in a vulnerable situation. Did it catch up on him on his final hike out there, especially with being alone? And with being alone in the past, did he struggle to get help? Well, I guess that's the key thing, right? In the past, when Kenny Veach was in a compromised situation and he was by himself, he still managed to get help. So maybe he still had that chance of being able to do that at least, if he did get in a bad situation. But it depends how fatal the situation is, right? If it's that bad, maybe he couldn't have been able to move, unconscious, it depends, the outcome, okay? If that's like a theory there. I'm saying, so even in compromised situations, he was alone, maybe because he didn't want anyone else getting injured in his hikes. That's true. I believe he said to Hunter, this is probably not the best hike for you, it is dangerous out there. I do say here, however, in regards to his M Cave hike, he did ask people to come with him, I guess to prove it to them, in a YouTube comments section of Son of Area 51 Technician. But no one took the offer. So yes, Kenny Veach did offer others to go with him. Was that because he needed them for safety? No. But I guess he just wanted to prove to people in real life what he saw. And maybe it would have been a different outcome if people went with him, because they would have been witnesses, wouldn't they? Jeff Clark says, it's a nasty place to hike. Very few people ever go there. It would be hard to find anyone else who wants to go there at all, let alone find someone to match your schedule. I was supposed to hike with Sean Horlacker because I couldn't find the mine, but we could never match up. With so few people ever going there, it's almost impossible to find anyone to go with you. And most people don't want to assume any liability to convince someone to go if they end up dying. Yeah. I mean, even if you went together as a pair or encouraged one another to go, one could be fit, ready. One could be from the area and have climatized to the location and more experienced with the hike if they've done it before. Another person can just come on in. They could be fit and healthy, but they're just not used to that terrain and environment and find it much harder, may struggle, may even succumb to the environment, you never know. And could it drag down or slow down the experienced hiker? It can make it awkward for one or another. So it's a bit of a balancing act. You need to be in like total synchronicity for the best outcome. Okay, so King says, thanks a lot for taking the time to fill me in, explains it. Interesting that he did ask if people wanted to join him on his specific hike, but nobody took up the offer. Maybe armchair hikers. Maybe. Acting tough. You never know. And responding to Jeff, thanks for the information. The liability part makes sense as well. When I'm thinking about it, unless there are experienced hikers out there who are up for a difficult challenge, it sounds so creepy and eerie when he described what happened to him when entering that cave. From what I gather, he wasn't backing down ever when entering caves, but this one was different as he was clearly shaken, getting that creepy sensation when the body just screams, no, get out. You're welcome. I mean, I could add on from his King of Kings original comment, why would you go alone if it's a scary place? Well, I think it's because Kenny Veach has been in that area in the past and it wasn't as bad. And then on one occasion when he was out there, that's when he did first encounter the cave and when he first became wary of the place. It's kind of like with J Chuck, even SB. They've been out there hiking. At first it was all okay. And then over time, at some points, they then started getting some weird, creepy experiences, encounters, footsteps, voices, stuff like that. You can go from visualizing the place as a very peaceful, nice, calming location to being on high alert, tense, feeling like you're being watched. It can change. And with Kenny referring to how he slept and hiked up in the peak area, as he called Gas Peak, which is incorrect, should have been known as Sheep Peak, roughly up that way. He went there and he made his way down the following day, and that was in the past. In the past, before he came across the M cave, supposedly. So it was all fine and dandy back then, but once he came across the cave, supposedly in that area, everything changed. So that's where it seems to be. I mean, Kenny, I don't know, how relaxed was Kenny on his second hike out there when looking for the cave in his recorded video? He stuttered a little bit shaky maybe, sped up on his hike a bit later on, approaching Picture Canyon. I mean, when he went past the small caves and the supposed covered cave, when panning around over on the other side of the canyon wall, he said, oh, and you got that cave up there. And he said, looks like, but never finished his sentence. I wonder what he was referring to. And then he said, dude, I'm not going up there. And then proceeded to walk quick. Was he intimidated by that cave as well? Was he very cautious? Did he start, irrational thoughts, mind going all over? You never know. Anyway, what's his comment? Internet says, this body was nowhere near where he disappeared. Totally different side of Las Vegas. Dude, yeah, it's a totally different side. And just like Kenny's description of his video, what he described, and his original first encounter through his comment on YouTube, two totally different descriptions in two totally different sides of Las Vegas. How can you not understand that? How many more times does it need to be drilled into your skull? Let's continue reading this comment then. They say there's zero link, none. Invalid, incorrect, there are links. You're just not seeing them. You need to rethink, revise. Okay? You say, I know you're not from Mojave Desert. I'm not even from the US. So here's a little education. Oh, everybody sit down. Class time has come. What's going to be said here? We're going to be lectured or what? 1. Yes. This is the Mojave Desert. The Mojave covers multiple states, but mostly parts of California and Nevada, but small parts of Arizona and Utah. Yeah? Utah. I used to say Utah, and people said I was wrong. It's Utah. And like Reno, no, it's Reno. Yeah? I'm learning, aren't I? What a clever boy I am. Anyway, back to the original comment. 2. As you know, Frenchman Mountain is on the east side of Las Vegas. Just because past to Lake Mead, Kenny Veach disappeared in an area way north of Las Vegas. This particular area is full of old hidey holes and dangerous geyser caves, some filled in safety. Is known dumping ground, possible toxic waste. This is a popular hiking area too. It's not unusual to find bodies out there, especially lately with a lot of homeless having been driven out of town with the storms, F1 and Super Bowl. The Frenchman Mountains wouldn't be a challenge for Veach. A lot of people make the hike up there because you can see all of Las Vegas on one side of Lake Mead, on the other. I know I've done that many hike, the very hike. It's a hard hike. An experienced hiker, climber could do it easily. Falls are common because it's steep. There's a lot of scree. It tricks a lot of people because there's a nasty downhill after a false summit. A lot of people turn around at that point. I've seen people slip and fall on that downhill. There's also a ton of jeep trails and milder climbs that a lot of people take. About 6 years ago, they found a murder victim up there, stabbed to death, whilst they were looking for missing hikers. Other bodies have been found up there too. In fact, human remains are common. They're in Lake Mead itself, Mafia, Frenchmen, Lake Mead, as well as the Pet Cemetery near Boulder City and all potential bodies. What's this? I think it's irresponsible to suggest that these remains could be his. It's just silly. Your lack of knowledge of the area is staggering, really. You even said, how popular is the area? I don't know. You're right, you don't know. That's the point. You know what the interesting thing is, you delusional, impetuous, one-dimensional, mortal individual? It's the fact that an individual from the UK operating on a bed. This bed has seen more action than Frenchman Mountains, okay? Whilst I've been conducting and doing analysis and map analysis of the area of, let's say, Jomay Canyon, an individual from the UK who has no clue of the area, the US, etc. And yet with time, I was able to construct individual key map analysis and hike routes in which local Las Vegas individuals, people who have visited Las Vegas, who have hiked out to the key areas where Kenny Veach supposedly is or was at, and they said to me, but my map analysis, my videos were outstanding, perfect, should have been used by search and rescue. So it's said with high praise, and this is by key individuals that have been boots on ground out there. For them to praise an individual from the UK many miles away who has no knowledge of the area and yet is so accurate when it comes to the analysis and routes, I think it is somewhat under control. As for Frenchman Mountains, whether it's popular or not, it's irrelevant. What's most important is remains were found there. And Kenny's original description of his first encounter with the M Cave, his unrecorded hike, matches that description in that area east of Las Vegas. You're the one that fails to understand that, okay? And just in addition, there's been times in the past, this case or other cases, where the one with the lack of knowledge, lesser knowledge, ends up being referred to as the expert in the end. That sometimes the one that supposedly has less knowledge proves everyone wrong. I sense that this individual has not been around long enough to understand. Anyway, let's continue this memoir. By the way, as an example, I live by Edwards Air Force Base. That could mean a lot of things. You see, Area 51 is actually part of Edwards Air Force Base. Nellis, I told you I found a great hiking spot near Edwards Air Force Base. Do you know what? I don't know why I'm talking about, but I need to turn it into an all-American, right? Because this is probably coming from an American, an all-American individual, an expert analyst of the place. So let me tell you something. I told you I found a great hiking spot near Edwards Air Force Base. I mean a lot of places, including Area 51, which, by the way, is not what we call it. And yes, I'm very familiar with it. Seeing as my daddy worked for Lockheed Skunk Works, my grandfather NASA GPL, one uncle Northrop Plan 42, and another uncle that was flight test engineer for aircraft. He's still not allowed to talk about it even though he's retired, because they're still in the air. Yeah, man. In use. There are no aliens at Area 51. It's literally just a testing facility, and range is off limits, man. Because the technology is too top secret and the range is dangerous. The alien thing is a hilarious joke that embrace. P.S. If you're into that kind of thing, the real alien base is said to be actually near the Mojave in California.
to the west of Edwards. It's just an ordinary radar cross-section range, lol. By the way, that area is a good 4-hour drive from Las Vegas. Mojave's the largest Death Valley is smack dab in the middle of it. Welcome to Mojave Desert, man. This is born and raised here. Laughing. Is that Sam? That rock, yeah, the rock geology wall is based on a cabin used by miners. I don't know what camp is 10 about it, maybe a part of dugout. It was coming all over Nevada at the time. I believe that's part of the old mining from the early 1900s, when the Frenchman mine was operating. Seriously, that mine is full of mines, and so there are bodies everywhere, man. Bones are like being uncovered because of recent heavy rainfall and erosion. Similar to how bodies and barrels found in Lake Mead recently when the water levels dropped super low. By the way, if you really want to learn about Frenchman Mountains, look into Mrs. Morgan. Her cave was filled in for safety. There were several others on the mountain. Hold on. You're saying that I need to look into Mrs. Morgan? Mrs. Morgan? Where's Arthur Morgan at? Where's Mr. Morgan?
Well, god damn, I don't know where Miss Morgan is. My name's Arthur Morgan. Lenny, where are you, goddamn son of a bitch? I got a little bit of a cough. I should be down to Tahiti right now. Looks like that ain't gonna happen, but it's alright. Don't worry, boy. Boy, the way you keep talking, running your mouth, looks like we're gonna have a high duel at high noon. Mister, are you ready for that? Don't worry, it's alright. I'll see Mrs. Morgan later on.
Fucking hell, Mrs. Morgan. And last but not least, P.S. Please learn how to pronounce Nevada. Yes, it matters, but yeah, this is not Kenny Veach. Not even Vegas odds would cover that. Oh my goodness. Let's now look at the responses. So it appears that 6 people, 6 idiots, agree with this, just like the 4 others further down, impetuous individuals that completely failed to understand my whole point of the video. This obsessed individual once again complains, "You completely failed to comprehend this comment. It's your daughter. Let me see you need your freaking kiwi. Did you probably got tired of the noise? I mean, quiet pill, you're boring. You done yesterday interesting, let me go on lodge. Simon, you still tired of this not working?" Who the fuck is Simon? Simon says? What does Simon say? Get the fuck out of here. Moving on. Jeff Clark. He's pointing out one possible theory. Exactly. And all theories are valid until something is proven. Exactly. No, there are not bodies laying all over the place around Vegas. Absurd. And no, not everyone agrees with your canned explanation of Area 51. You sound like you are sprouting the same boring explanation that the feds want to be known. Name just one other military US base that operates its own private airline service to shuttle staff in and out around the clock. Groom operates very differently and much more expensively than any other US base. Very good point by Jeff Clark. I says, USF, multiple private companies contracted to transport employees. You know that if you know what you're talking about. Edwards FOB really transports employees the way they turn up Romney. So contractors all over the time. People are living on main base on the communities in West Mojave to home. They go back and forth for home. They Plan 42 in Palmdale Edwards. You won't even present any of this possibility by this Veach. He's in pseudo to suggest that the MK is around Frenchman. It doesn't even affect the Frenchman is nowhere near a missing person. And yes, there were bodies all over the dam in the Vegas from the Frenchman is bolted to the bottom of the lake. Did you pay attention to the stories of being the body when the lake would dropped? The pet cemetery is bolted illegally buried pets. Yeah, but it's open secret that there are no more pets out there. Okay. Moving on. It's an entire airline service out of Vegas, and the vast majority of full-size airliners are shutting people out groomed every day. They do that because they do not want people who are off work hours wandering around the base, so they fly them out. The other bases you mentioned have on-site barracks for the military and parking lots for the civilians who drive themselves to work every day. It's just a rare oddity to fly somewhere else for a particular meeting or somewhere. It's not normal operation from the staff, like it's Green Lake Stop Lying. If he wasn't presenting this a possibility, why is there a question mark in the title? Exactly. Lol. They found 3 bodies in Giant Lake Mead, a couple of dead hikers in the desert in the past few years. So if you consider that to be a common occurrence, then you are correct. I do not consider a few bodies in such a vast areas to be a lot. True. And yes, Kenny himself mentions hiking in both the DNWR and east of Vegas, so he was familiar with both. Same for Mount Charleston. Perfect. The default profile for personal reasons that have zero to do with my opinion or knowledge of the situation. People in the wrong usually default personal attacks, they're facts or content. Go back to the content instead of attacking the messenger. You clearly have zero knowledge of the area. You've been admitted in the video not knowing how popular Frenchman is for hiking. Yes, I did watch it. I watched many, and my opinion stands. Your approach is based on wild tangents and assumptions of a keyboard warrior across the world. Have you ever been to Mojave? You don't even know if Las Vegas was in the Mojave or not. Right. You call me a keyboard warrior, yet I spend more time making videos compared to you, who spends more time typing up comments. So realistically, you're the keyboard warrior. And for your information, most of the videos that I make, if not 100% of the videos that I have made on the case, have not involved a keyboard. You prat. Okay? I hit the record button, I talk. I go on Google Earth, I scroll. I go on articles, I read. I don't type. The only time I type on a keyboard is responding back to comments or leaving the odd comment as a pinned message. As said, your points are invalid there. Your observations are weak. You're an impetuous individual. You fail to understand and grasp the concept of my video and the title as well, where the usage of a question mark implies uncertainty, but at least acknowledges the possibility. You have failed once again. Default profile or not, you come across as a whingy whiner. Another statistic to the channel's growth. Okay? You say you've watched many of my videos. Well, clearly you've gone wrong. You should have known better by now to understand how things go here. Maybe you need to look back further. Okay? But once again, I'm disappointed in you. Okay? Maybe you need to check out the 50 Shades of Wrath video. That might enlighten you a little bit. Moving on. Jeff Clark says, for someone who claims to be an expert in Vegas, your claims are very wild, bordering on absurd. There are not bodies commonly laying around everywhere out there, and I've already debunked your canned explanation about Area 51 and Janet quite easily. And the fact that he has never physically been here is meaningless in relation to this mystery. Yeah. And the fact is that an individual that has never been to the area themselves physically seems to know more about the case and has covered more about the case than this whingy whiner what we see on screen here right now. So, a bit of a back and forth tussle with Jeff Clutter. Incorrect humming. Is that because of the testing and the strict controlled access? Again, go back to my first post. I know people who work in the field. I grew up around test pilots, NASA scientists. My own father disappeared for days at a time and couldn't tell us where he was. Also, like me, there's the deadliest park in the US, and just because there isn't a news story doesn't mean bodies aren't found. People go missing all the time out there. They find bodies of homeless people almost daily. Clark County Coroner handles about 12 to 20 cases of remains like this each year. Most of them end up being identified. The victims of drug deal, accidents, domestic type situations. In some years, there are 12 in just a few months. That just remains randomly discovered in the desert. People fly from Plant 42 to Edwards to Vegas all the time. From Vegas, they take Janet for a reason. Some of you can see flight trackers, some of you can't. Oh, keeps on going, doesn't it? P.S. You know Janet flies out of Plant 42, right? It also flies from Edwards, Channel Lake, etc. I work right under the path departing flights from Plant 42. We can tell. Also, there's a place on Sierra Highway and Avenue north in Palmdale where people sit and watch them take off, as well as a lot of other interesting things around here. Commonplace. We don't have to deal with a bunch of conspiracy alien hunters that can stay in Nevada. It's funny. But yes, people I know grew up with, friends. Oh, here we go. Work with a suitcase, go home. We knew two things we could guess. Okay, easily. Right. Oh, just hanging out with aliens, learning their flight technology. Laughing, crying emoji. So this person's resorting to degenerative millennial Gen Z type communication online with emojis. Pathetic. What else do we have here? Groom does not house its staff or allow employees to drive themselves to work. It operates differently. The feds do not operate private airline services daily for the fun of it. They do it because they want to maintain control and maintain secrets. I don't give a shit if you test pilots or engineers. They only tell you what they're allowed to tell you and nothing more. So in fact, you know nothing more than anyone else. And bodies are not found around Lake Mead daily. That's utter nonsense. So Jeff Clark does know what he's talking about. Jeff Clark is somewhat of a realistic individual. when it comes to this type of talk. This one. Twinkie says, "Sir, this kid is in another country, so I'm sure he doesn't know the area well. Talking about Kenny's case keeps it in people's thoughts. As you stated, many people do go missing and their cases are forgotten. Many experienced hikers go out there and look for Kenny based on YouTube videos like this. You have such extensive knowledge of the geographical location, terrain and history that is quite impressive. However, you should share it without the pompous and rude attitude. You're the fitting image people have of Americans being rude. That's very true. My uncle was a lieutenant colonel and knew plenty about the area. He would gladly talk about within boundaries without attitude." So shout out to Twinkie. Welcome to the channel. That was summarized quite well. What I would say, that internet jury guy is a wannabe expert in the Kenny Veach case that has their head so far rammed up their rear end. They think they're it, that they're God, and that they know everything. And when they do deliver a message, or they're responding back to an individual that may make a mistake or not be as certain or as knowledgeable in the eyes of themselves, they decide to, berate them and blast them, which is just a bit childish and unnecessary. I mean, at the end of the day, you can be an expert, you can put points across in a neutral way. Don't have to always resort to attacking someone. But internet jury, if you ever feel like people doubt you or question you, it's because of your attitude and approach. You need to restructure your mind, your complex. I think you do have some form of a complex. Maybe there is a deep-rooted subconscious mindset within you, or even in the unconscious mind, which derives from an origins in the past of an experience and encounter back then. And it's one of the kickers which activates your defensive nature. You can get a bit defensive at times, internet jury, which would make me think like a subconscious self-defense mechanism within the mind. Is it because you don't like the truth? Is it because you don't like the alternative reality compared to your own mindset? Are you trapped within the matrix? Possibly. Or trapped within your own thoughts. But at the end of the day, we will, or I will, keep your comment up so you can make yourself stand out more of a prat each time. Okay? People can see this, the attitude, the unnecessary behavior. And it also highlights how toxic and cancerous people can be within the Kenny Veach community. So this can be like evidence, witnesses, people are seeing it right now. And we can always compare, contrast to the future if people change in behavior or not. Roscoe says, "If not Kenny, could it be Dylan Rounds, a young farmer missing 2+ years, Utah desert farm in Nevada connections, but man arrested is familiar. All these areas as transient and Dylan's extensive search had not been found." That's true. "If you can please inform or look into, I'm UK2 and not computer intel. I'm subbed as I find your knowledgeable mate and trust your help would be appreciated." So welcome to the channel. That's good of you. Harry says, "Has been a lot on Dylan already, nothing new yet. Left message on your Dylan video after viewing Here Have You Checked interview with parents and Heavy D Sparks. No need to reply." Right, so is there any points that I need to respond back to here? So the idea of it being Dylan Rounds, on the basis that he hasn't been found yet, I can understand that. He could be elsewhere, further north, further east, southwest. I've hinted at that in my past videos. Personally, just my opinion, I wouldn't say the remains at Frenchman Mountains are of Dylan, because it being in a hiking area and away from farming and further away from his actual place of work or his places of work, there'd be no real reason for him to be over that way. And even if he was disposed of, let's say the desecration part, as Brenner has been charged with that with Dylan Rounds, I just don't think Dylan Rounds would be transported all that distance to an area like that, where it is a public hiking spot. Okay? Now, I do believe as well, in not response to your comment, but the other idiot down below, when I was questioning about Frenchman Mountains, how popular is it really? I did also highlight that it's going to be more popular than the likes of Jeremy Canyon, which is more desolate. So that did say it into perspective there enough. Okay, but clearly the person down below didn't understand that language. As I said, people will only watch so much of my video, miss out the rest, and then complain. That's not my fault, right? you're listening long enough, you'll eventually, understand. But was there anything else that I needed to respond to Roscoe specifically? Dylan's extensive search, if you can please inform or look into it. Okay. I mean, I can have a brief look in the background and compared the true distance between Lucin, Utah and Frenchman Mountains. If it's a great distance, then I'm probably going to debunk it and say it's unlikely. But if it's not that far, possible. But to get from one place to another, would you need to use the main highway? Because if so, someone like Brenner was known, supposedly, not to do that. He kept away from, the masses of the general public. But interesting comment to add in, right? Throws it into the mix. Harry says, if you're looking west towards Nellis Air Force Base, all the sides of Frenchman Mountains look like a series of capital M's. That's true. It would support the right geology described in Kenny's video. The rough location where the human remains were found is that, which appears to be a main wash from Frenchman Mountains range. Yeah. I said we can always look back at Frenchman Mountains with time. There's the link there. That's good to see with the project. Steve says, thank you. You're welcome. Dental evidence will reveal identity. True. And, they found the skull, didn't they? So the skull will likely have teeth with it, or hopefully will. So the dental part should be somewhat successful. Might still take time, though. Steve says, remains might have been brought there after being kept any distance away for a long period of time. Moreover, large population nearby could provide plenty of corpses. Right. 1,000 scenarios run through my mind. Just one. Veach really found a mysterious cave that he fictionalized in order to throw people off the true location of the mysterious cave that may not even have an actual M-shaped opening. And by feigning an intentional disappearance, leaving his things by the mine shaft, he was trying to make searchers think in terms of a suicide in cheap range, maybe. When all along he knew he was going back to the cave he found around Frenchman Mountains. That's a fair point that you never know. And if he did truly go to Frenchman Mountains to find the cave whilst throwing everybody off the scent, there's always that small chance that maybe things did backfire on him and he succumbed to the environment or got injured. And then fast forward onwards, remains found. You never know. Great post, that's good to know. Steve says, fact, many people hike solo for years on end. If Kenny went to Frenchman Mountains to search for the original M cave, he must have had an accomplice, or he nabbed a ride from the Jomay area. Yeah, way over east Las Vegas. Well, Kenny did say in the past on a hike on the way back from there, within the area of his M cave hike route, supposedly, made it down to the highway once to be picked up by his girlfriend. So he's got experience there. He could have done it again, hitchhiking. Maybe an accomplice. Sharon Pilgrim went with Kenny Veach to search for the real mystery cave. You never know. And once he relocated the cave, his accomplice, Sharon Pilgrim, killed him as one who has explored a great deal in America. I promise you that lots of mysterious hiding places exist within a few feet of worn trail. You never know. Some other people have suggested that maybe Sharon Pilgrim, the girlfriend, kidnapped Kenny Veach and have got him somewhere. It can go deep and wide, but, let's just acknowledge them. When nearing or entering a liminal space, what Veach describes does occur. Please study Husserl or liminality, or study the phenomenon online. It's real. I haven't time to discuss it further. Okay. If the bones found on Frenchman's Mountains are KV, then he was lying about going back into sheep range to look for the M cave. True. Or he could have been killed on his last hike, fake exploration, and his body either kept somewhere to secretly decompose before being dumped, skull and bones on Frenchman Mountains, or taken directly to Frenchman Mountains and dumped. Yeah. This one. Most locals refer to all or any part of that military complex as Nellis Air Force Base, or just Nellis or Area 51. Although Area 51 is another specific part of that base, as in the bombing test range, the physical area under federal military control around the base has expanded several times and encompasses a huge swath of area. Military does not want any visual observation into the base, so they have grabbed up all the land and every visual vantage point to prevent snooping, especially hilltops. Well, Steve, I don't know if you're aware, but I did an actual map analysis of the area Kenny Veach hiked in, his recorded video. And I also covered the proposed original military land takeover of the entire area of where Kenny was hiking about, Jeremy Canyon. Okay? And also the second proposal of taking over as for military land, because the first one didn't work, the second one didn't work, but supposedly secretly in the background they're still working on it and they want that land. So I'm aware to an extent of military land presence, control, and wanting more. They want more, they want to expand. There is still, opportunities for them. It's just not been successful yet. I've covered it all on my channel. It's under control. But as for the whole Nellis Air Force Base talk, I mean, for most of the time I've spent covering this case, besides those articles online which tend to be misinformation, and besides Kenny's original comment, if not all the time, I've heard people reference the case, right? What I've been involved in, the community. I've never really heard it called Nellis Air Force Base. I've heard it Nellis Test Range, Bombing Range. That's all I've ever heard it as. So whilst all these typical Americans can come on in and say, well, that's what it's named, that's what it's known as, that's what it's generalised as, right? As for the Kenny Veach case and community, all I've ever heard it being is worded as it actually is. And as you see on the maps, word for word, right? Maybe I'm just more specific. Johnny. Frenchman Mountain, nowhere near where his phone was found by the mine. Oh my God. The video that I did, I highlighted that and I provided an explanation as to how one thing can end there, but the other person can end elsewhere. Johnny, you didn't watch the video. Rewatch, rethink, revise. Okay? We've got Keith. Thanks for the update, you're welcome. Usually randomly check for updates, but missed this. I'll keep an eye on it. Not saying this is Kenny Veach, but I believed and stated if Kenny Veach is found, it won't be anywhere near Jeremy Canyon. Find a handgun, you found Kenny Veach, which should be within relatively a small area of where the school was found. Fair point. Maybe I've watched too many crime dramas, but I still favoured the notion he was murdered, his body dumped in Frenchman Mountain where nobody would find him. So it still smells fishy with this Kenny Veach case, and it's not my tuna fish sandwich. There we go. So that's it of the comments. Over 100 comments read out. Wow, what a workout.
So after reading through some of those comments, I wouldn't be surprised if my IQ dropped just a little bit looking at the idiocracy of it in a general fashion. Idiosyncratic, bombastic, one-dimensional individuals. All I can say is, there's a few people present, regular viewers, good individuals that don't agree with the recent comparisons and links. That's normal. That's fair. People can think for themselves, but they also know how to act appropriately, like a normal human. What's normal? I know people ask that. But, just disagreeing and adding a little point here and there, no issues. But the others that come on in, barge their way in with force, berating, whining on paragraph after paragraph, trying to look like an expert. I just think it's very unnecessary at the end of the day, right? Most of those people that do that didn't watch the full video. And even if they did, they didn't understand the language. If they're from the US and I'm from the UK, I have wording, I have vocabulary, which doesn't match theirs. If mine is of higher standards than some of those individuals, well, there's going to be a simple language barrier. That's it, okay? It's not my problem. You have to rewatch, try and rethink, revise. You think you can do that? Because as always said, if people want to act out, you heard that, there are items nearby. Doctor's appointment needed for some, maybe. As for the others, might need more of a lobotomy. But besides my IQ, dwindling by the presence of these impetuous individuals, there's no point even measuring theirs. They're already at baseline. Not really going to go anywhere else unless it can go into the minus section. But I think that aside, there we go. Do I have any final thoughts or points to add on to? I'll just reiterate it once again. You got remains in an area not too far from Las Vegas, and the area that was described by Kenny Veach, his very first hike, unrecorded, matches that area where the remains were found. Simple as that. You want to look at it word for word, it is what it is. And this is what I find very hypocritical. Because at every end of the spectrum of idiots and prats that come along the way, there's always a form of hypocrisy that follows, and then it's the defining moment that they were simply a lost cause. And the lesson what we can learn here and acknowledge, everyone, make sure you're locked on and focused. The hypocrisy is people are very quick and snappy to point out to language, wording, pronunciation, the vocabulary there, right? When it comes to some of the stuff that I've covered. A simple word or not, whatever it may be. People are quick to acknowledge that. You need to be clear, you need to say it correctly, you need to be accurate. Ooh. And yet the moment I look at a comment by Kenny Veach, word for word in his description, it matches the area of Frenchman Mountains or nearby. But those same type of people say to me, oh no, it doesn't mean that, you've got the wrong area, Kenny Veach was elsewhere. How do you know? Because of his second hike, his recorded hike. You're using that as proof. But his first hike, his only encounter with coming across the M Cave was unrecorded. That could be anywhere. There is no proof to say it was in the same area as his second hike in his actual hike video was. You couldn't find it the second time. Was it even in that area or elsewhere? That's what I'm saying. And as I said, word for word, the way it's described points in a different direction. But all these people saying that I'm wrong and also complaining and criticising are the same people that call me out for wording and pronunciation. Got to be word for word accurate in speech, in patterns. Hypocrisy. You're very critical when it comes to a mistake made, but you're not critical in understanding a comment made by somebody else, such as Kenny Veach, who either made a mistake in description or was thrown out a form of misdirection. Could it mean that all these whingers and whiners are biased individuals that have an agenda against me but look up to Kenny Veach as their master? Or that they're in on it within the case? You never know. Could some of these people be the same ones that attacked certain other investigators in this case? With time, I wonder. Well, psychological warfare, whiny tones, it's just not going to work. There are videos that are going to be made, whether you like it or not. Okay? For those that want to complain, be a statistic. Similar to Mr. X, the brother of Jim Terry. Mr. X from the Dylan Rounds case, who doesn't even really care about missing people or the Dylan Rounds case, while still talking about it and making references. An individual that doesn't care about a certain community or the overall concept of it, but still sticks around while he's still here. Mr. X, an individual that has made several mistakes in the past and got things wrong about my channel, my statistics, claiming that I've never had over 100 live viewers, but I've got clear proof of that on my channel page and screenshots. Mr. X is a one-dimensional idiot, okay? Simple as. Impetuous prat. Making mistakes along the way and changing in behaviour too. Once said to me, Raf, you got a great channel, great videos. Don't let the haters put you down, keep on going. It's funny how Mr. X turned into the hater at the end of the day. Well, I'm following your original advice. I'm still continuing. And you suddenly don't like it. Makes me think those typical fake delusional positive people that issue out a certain quote, you follow it through, and then they criticize you for doing that. Yeah, I see that a lot. Hypocrisy. Pathetic, cancerous humans. And you know what happens to cancerous humans? They become my patient. They are treated like a patient. Nothing more, nothing less. That's it on the dotted line. Lost cause, end of the line. Shame not. All in all then, idiots aside, from Dylan Rouse community to the Kenny Veach community, other people out there that can think for themselves, whether they agree or disagree with me, they are perfectly fine and can think for themselves and show a form of respect, which is appreciated. So shout out to all the people that watched this video, and especially the people that watched most of this video. Okay, that's all good. I'll see you next time, whenever that is and whatever it's about. It's probably going to be unrelated. It's probably going to be random. I want to do the odd experiment because I need to test some stuff out on YouTube and then go from there. So I'll see you whenever that is. For now, goodbye and good night.